Welcome back to Gruber Motor Company, the Gruber Morning Show. I'm Pete Gruber.
And I'm Zane Courtney.
And we're here to entertain you again this morning on this Tuesday morning. The picture behind us is a picture in Lübeck. And it's in northern Germany. It's on the Baltic coast. And this German city, fairly small still, it's only like, it's under 300,000 as far as population. It was part of the Hanseatic League, and it started in 1200. By 1400, this small city became the queen of the Hanseatic League. The Hanseatic League, for those of you that are curious, was a trade organization in the medieval times, and the cities that were part of this became extremely wealthy because a lot of goods and services and products funneled through these cities. So they became the crown jewels of Europe. Some of the others that were mentioned was Venice, Rome, Pisa, Florence. So this is a picture in the downtown area. Sadly, the majority of this beautiful medieval city was destroyed during all of the wars that took place. And we're not just talking about World War II. There was the Napoleon Wars, and so the casualty typically is that the beautiful architecture that was created during the peak of these types of places on the planet, some of it gets destroyed, but this is some of what was left. It's a beautiful city. Highly recommend you go there. And I guess we have a question.
We sure, well, it's from Anwar. Good morning, gentlemen. Big hi from Kuwait. Good to see you, Anwar. We love to get to see you again. You know, it's funny when you talked about the architecture being burnt. All I can think is that we just need more Assassin's Creed games so that we can have the models ready, like what we happened with the Notre Dame a number of years ago. And it's just another exciting proof that video games are in fact a benefit for society.
They document and record some history then in some ways.
It is hilarious that they just happen to have a perfect model ready. In the event of that kind of tragedy. They're like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? And Ubisoft comes through and it says, hey, we've got the model. Do you want it?
Very cool, very cool.
I love that.
So, you know, there's an event coming up this month in Los Angeles.
Speaking of history.
Yeah, the Petersen Auto Museum, which will be hosting a unique SpaceX Tesla event. And it is on Wilshire Boulevard, 6060 Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles. The building itself had relocated recently, and the building they went to had a massive restoration done. And the statistics are staggering. They poured $90 million into this building, and it is about 200,000 square feet, just under. It's full of 135 vintage special collectible cars. And November 20th, it will be open to the public, and they're having a special Tesla and SpaceX event with some really notable early Tesla cars in this building. Present will be the 2005 Roadster called the Aerodynamic Buck, which was a early prototype for design evolution. They're going to have a 2012 Model X prototype and a 2016 Model 3 prototype, as well as development versions of the Cyberquad from 2019 and some SpaceX, Boring Company, and Hyperloop paraphernalia. The other part of this is the cars that will be there will include, and the reason I know this is, it wasn't in the press release here, some signature roadsters. The museum contacted us about a month or so ago with a VIN 77 signature green roadster that had been bricked for 3 years. And they heard about our reputation being able to bring roadsters back to life and decided, let's give Gruber a shot and see if these guys can make it come back. Well, after 5 years or 3 years, it's not possible to revive a Tesla Roadster battery. But that will be one of the cars that will be in this show. A second one will be a Radiant Red Founders Series Roadster, VIN number 7, which was Sergey Brin's car, Sergey Brin of Google fame. And then what really floored us was when they said that they're going to have a T0 there. The T0 was the genesis of the EV revolution, at least in this century. We have one, they have one, and there's a third one that is floating out there somewhere. There were only 3 built. But this T0 number 3 will be at the Petersen Auto Museum, and if you want to see one live, fully intact, this car will also be there.
Can't confirm yet whether or not we'll be there, right?
We're
working on that?
Yeah, one of our social
Working
media
on
team
that.
members is working on it, but it's definitely highly recommended. Franz von Holzhausen will most likely be there. He's one of the members of the museum that's actively involved. And another car that's going to be there is VIN number 99, which is in our shop right now. It's the only custom green factory color Roadster. And it has an interesting story, which I suggest if you want the background, go to our website, go to the gallery section, and just look up VIN 99. Elon was involved in that. It was actually used to barter for a commercial building, and it's truly a one of a kind. We have recovered the battery pack about 2 months ago or so, and we're putting finishing touches on the car now. So it will be there. It's the only Bugatti green Roadster in existence.
Hey, Pete?
Yes.
Do you want the Petersen Auto image up there? And then also, what was the one that went over to Rich? What's the one that went to the East Coast? Is that still going to be there? Do we know?
We don't know, and that's why I left it out. But if you want to pop up that image of the Petersen Auto Museum, that's definitely something our readers, I think, will be interested in. What you're going to see is the results of a $90 million renovation. By the way, I pointed out to Zane earlier, 30 years ago, you could buy a skyscraper or a high-rise building in downtown Phoenix for $30 million.
Right.
So $90 million was quite a
Or you could get
expense.
one of those. Look at that. It looks like Mordor.
What you're seeing there is stainless steel ribbons that actually surround the building. The building itself is a bright red underneath all that stainless steel, and at night they illuminate the red building inside, so it plays with all of that stainless ribbon that goes around the building.
Wow. That's beautiful. Look at that.
I think the designers and architects nailed it. They wanted something futuristic, something that speaks automotive, and the thing really looks like a hypercar.
It does. No, it truly does. It looks like the concept art for a vehicle that can't possibly exist.
Yes. Yep.
Quick from YouTube. Hi from Santee, California. What's up, Nalver? From Instagram, Anwar asks, in which state is this tower? Is the Tesla tower? What's the tower made for? I wonder if he's referring to the Anderson Museum.
Oh, it could be the Anderson. Yeah, it's in Los Angeles, and for those of you interested in going to this event, opening November 20th, open to the public. It's on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, and you can get the address online. But yeah, it's going to be quite an event. We're hoping that Elon will show. No one has confirmed that yet, but I think that would also be a big draw, and people would join. We have a TikTok visitor, Van Gogh ATNC. Morning, y'all. Morning. How are you doing?
Good
and where are
morning.
you from, Van Gogh?
So I think it's Van Goat.
Van Goat.
Van
Oh,
Gogh,
there we
North
go.
Carolina. Okay.
I love that.
I love it when you guys give us brain teasers.
I know,
with,
it's a
with the
clue, it's a
names.
puzzle.
Yeah, sometimes they're clues. What we're going to have to do is get a mirror and see if it was done backwards, you know?
I was going to say, anybody that's close to LA, this is especially fun for you guys so that you guys can get to check out this auto museum. It doesn't even look like a museum. I love that in Denver, actually, the art museum there's got a lot of different polygons that it plays with. It's kind of a neat design itself, but it's nothing like a pure stainless steel bird's nest. And you know what it reminds me of is the Beijing Olympics stadium that they had built in 2008. You remember that?
I do, yeah, vaguely. If we had, yeah, we could pop that up, I guess, if we get the image of that.
Do a little side by side.
Yeah.
But From Van Goat, has anyone come up with a way to put out battery fires yet?
Oh, firefighters. You know, it's an ongoing challenge, and we get asked this question a lot since we've had 2 fires in our GMC shops. They're struggling with it because when you concentrate that much energy into a package and it ignites, and water simply won't put it out, you know, reducing oxygen won't do a thing because it generates its own. They're very difficult fires to extinguish. So I'm sure the technology will continue to improve, but I think the next quantum leap in improvement is going to be in the batteries themselves. You know, why make a highly combustible battery when you have other options like graphene, for example?
Right, right.
So I think that is the future. For now, we have to live with the fact that we have combustible batteries and EVs that not only ignite from heat and fire, but also ignite from salt water, like we saw with Hurricane Ian, where highly corrosive salt water gets into the battery pack, creates shorts, creates heat, and the next thing you know, you ignite.
And once you have a shop battery pack, you still have a nice car that you can keep for 25 years and put it in an auto museum.
Right?
Good morning from Ducati John. Good morning. Do you think Elon will ever allow all EVs access to superchargers? Probably. How about salvage Teslas?
You know, it's already, it's already coming. The allowing of supercharger access to the other brands and other vehicles is well underway. And we all knew initially that by creating this massive network of charging capability, one terrific way to create a massive revenue stream is to open it up to other platforms. You know, these things are oftentimes underutilized, except of course in downtown LA where you've got a high concentration of people and you have long lines. But generally there is reserved capacity at these superchargers, and why not monetize that and allow other people to, or other brands to charge. The issue of salvage vehicles is still not available. And you know, Tesla's official reason is, since for years they didn't work on salvage vehicles, many of these vehicles have been worked on by backyard mechanics, and the safety protocols and the test procedures and you know, all of the production methods to get a car fixed like this were not applied by these individuals. So there's risk. They don't know what the functionality of this car is. Their biggest concern is you're at a supercharger and one of these hybrids that was repaired by some backyard mechanic
is gonna
ignites, and suddenly you've got a massive problem.
I'm pulling it up right now. You guys will see it here in just a second. The non-Tesla supercharger pilot is active.
Okay.
And it's active all over Europe, it looks like.
Oh, there we go.
Europe is
we
already
knew.
doing
Yeah,
it.
that had started
back
earlier
in
this year.
November.
Last year.
2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're already doing the pilot, testing it, and then I'm sure they'll roll it out here.
Because that's been the big controversy, is that why hasn't it come to the States yet? And maybe it's just because Europe does have a higher concentration. I think there's also somewhat of an economic move where they need to keep it exclusive for just a little bit longer so that they can figure out a proper way to move around those resources later. Because that tends to be the case where you kind of keep it exclusive for just long enough so that you build it out more elaborately, and then once it's big enough, then you can open it up. Because America is such a big economy that you got to be able to kind of accommodate for all these people, including the people who, whether or not they're going to drive a home-built hybrid into a Tesla supercharger, and how that's going to go, we'll find out, I guess. We'll find out.
I think it was a brilliant move, opening it up, and looks like
Oh
it's
yeah,
well underway.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got another topic here that fascinated Jesse, actually, one of the people on our production team. He was telling me yesterday that they now have fruit picking drones. And apparently there's an element of AI involved in this. You know, the selection of, is the fruit ripe, that type of thing. And these things work 24/7.
Oh, wow.
They work at night, they work during the day. I guess the sensing technology doesn't require daylight. And but there's some cool images that we saw of these little robot drones that were actually flying in amongst orchards and selecting fruit to pick, and then with little suction cups attaching.
I'm going to pop that up right now. You'll see it on your screen here in just a few seconds.
That's wild.
Yeah. That was a so it you know, again, we're living in an interesting time. I can't wait until we get production robots involved.
Yeah, right.
Doing the types of tasks that that human beings really don't relish doing.
You know, I was just out in the Midwest on some video shoots out there on some cornfields, and I tell you what, it's not fun walking through soy at this point. It's
Why is that?
spiky. So they've got all these protective little spikes on soy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like burrs, and they can kind of stick in you a little bit. It's not so bad, but it made me think. I'm like, farmers have been doing this for an awful long time, and yeah, you could strap on a pair of gaiters or just some thick jeans and be fine with it or whatever. But for the most part, you're going to be in a combine and being able to dig it up yourself. But the technology that they have for scanning the quality of these things, it's fascinating. They already have some technology to help grade certain kinds of grains and things like that while it's being harvested. So they have the data nearly immediately, and they're able to keep that data on hand so that they can make these really, really elaborate reports. So I guess these drones are built off of those grain reports that they already have, and they're able to, or not grain reports, but those farmer reports they already have, and they're able to put that in a drone to give it a little suction cup scanner.
Technology.
That's fascinating.
We have a question from a YouTuber, Nalver53.
Yep. Hey, Nalver.
We've all heard the current electrical grid will not handle the influx of EV owners. Well, actually, we did a video, and we were surprised. In doing the research, it turns out that the grid is evolving sufficiently to meet the demand, despite some really aggressive demand projections.
Yeah, people think that it'll break if everybody... It is true that the grid wouldn't be able to handle it if every single EV was charging at the same time at night. Then you'd essentially pop the biggest breaker in the world.
Right.
But we don't, and that's the nice thing is that, and right now even you have experimentation with reducing rates during the daytime to help encourage people spreading out that charging time. It's basically like doing laundry. Because you have people who do, their laundry at certain peak hours and things like that to help bring costs down. It's no different than that, really.
Right. Well, the second part of Nalver 53's, or Nalver's 3, sorry, that looked like a 5 from here.
No, it is a 5.
Oh, it is. Okay, Nalver 53. Is the second part of the question, is it possible to have a charging infrastructure on its own grid system? That's already being developed. One of our business partners that does all of our metal work here, the machine shop, Chaz's shop, they got a contract from the Duchess of York. And I was shocked, but she's into alternative energy. There, some of this royal money is being used for something other than parking in a bank account somewhere.
Huh.
But anyway, they got a contract to build charging stations that initially have solar on them to feed the electronics in the charging station with a goal of designing something substantial enough to where it becomes self-sufficient.
Wow.
So this means that you could essentially put a charging station anywhere on the planet that's getting some sun.
Right.
So you're no longer tied to being needing to be near the grid, and of course, with with an internet connection through Starlink, you have a self-contained pod basically that can achieve all of that. So to answer that question, it's already being done, it's being funded, and you should start seeing some of these deployed.
That's fascinating, because I know we've talked a little bit about the Rivian Adventure Network that's also going alongside the Tesla Supercharging Network and things like that, but each one of those I don't think is solar operated like that. So I guess that solar would be supplemental to having an actual off-grid. Well, I guess it would be its own capacitor that would be storing all that energy from the sun. So I see. So you would have it sitting there long enough to charge that battery, and then even if someone's sucking out, say 100 odd kilowatt hours per. Or what is it? 100 kilowatts an hour for a minute or two, being able to suck that thing out, but then the sun would be able to come back in, recharge that, and people can go on their merry way. Sure. And that's I'm assuming these are for more rural areas that's off grid intentionally, because by the time you get far enough from the city, you don't want to be on grid.
Yeah, or it could be an expense thing, to draw that much power, like the interstate, system that they're now putting charging stations. it may that charging station selection may not be on a main power leg or sufficient power leg to to power that.
But that's
So
where
this
inductive
application-
coupling could come in. I know
Well,
we've talked
yeah,
about
yeah. We've got a lot of cool stuff.
I feel like we're building the perfect system right now. So you got everything in the city, and then as you go out, you got some more inductive coupling. And then the further out you go, you've got these solar-powered chargers. I'm telling you, it's a good system. I think we got that figured out. So I saw an earlier question if any of us have been to SEMA. Have you guys been to SEMA?
I have not.
I've not either. It'd be so much fun to go.
It would be, yes. And once we fund this podcast a bit better, we'll have a budget for those types of things, and we'll be able to travel. So, yeah, that's definitely
There
the
we
plans.
go.
You know, years ago, it was a different type of trade show that we used to go to 30, 40 years ago. There were large Las Vegas computer type events. And I can't even remember the acronyms. They always had long acronyms.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
yeah. But yeah, they were cool places. It was like the city changed for that week that they had that show going on, you know, and people came in from all over the world actually.
That's awesome.
But yeah, these automotive events, would love to go to some. A lot of good stuff comes out of those. A lot of futuristic products are displayed.
Maybe that's how we'll get there. We got to start selling our own future products.
Yep, yep.
Our own sunglasses. I see you, Dragonfly, hiding behind sunglasses. Maybe we could start selling our own sunglasses.
DragonflyCatToys.com.
I think this is a spam comment.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Fake discussions. Anyone there have a degree? I have a degree. It's not in EVs. I will admit that. I'm not a liar. But
It looks like we're getting some. We're getting attacked a bit this morning, which is great.
hey,
Yeah. Yeah,
we
need
you know what?
naysayers
I'm
too.
here for all of that because it's like, look, because that's where the discussion can open. Fair enough. It is more fun when the discussion is about, you know, a certain critique of the EV ecosystem, if you want to call it, because it's fun to talk about. It's
Sure.
fun that's way more fun.
Do you know, one of the things I did this week was I started to look at some of the Quora questions. You guys are familiar with Quora. You know, you get to ask a question, a whole bunch of people chime in typically.
It's like the internet's frequently asked questions.
Yeah. But what I found is that sometimes these questions are being answered by people that actually do know what they're talking about because they work for the company that the question's being asked about.
Yeah.
And I've got some Tesla people that chimed in. This particular one was not a Tesla employee, but the question was, why is Tesla better positioned to survive than other automakers?
That is a good question.
Well, one of the stats that he's claiming is that in California, Tesla sells more sedans than any other manufacturer. He adds, they don't have to deal with dealers, nor out-of-date production lines, or suppliers that can't get up to speed with technology. Tesla does a lot of this on their own. And he says Tesla survived the first 10 years and is now growing at 100% per year. The rest of the legacy automakers are selling fewer and fewer cars. So when Tesla comes out with trucks, pickups, city cars, it will be all over for the rest of them, is his opinion.
Yeah, I could see that.
He does speak, though, about a looming concern at this point, which is batteries, getting enough batteries to meet their tentative production schedules. All of the EV manufacturers have that threat at this point. But Tesla, unlike the majority of them, is moving into being the biggest battery maker in the world. So
really?
The way to solve it is you develop your own production
There you go.
capability, and you're no longer tied to, you know, having to buy it on various places on the planet, which of course adds some additional costs too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the energy debate and discussion, that's really everything. What it comes down to is, you know, we can talk about battery electric vehicles all day and have a good time with that, but it is, you know, a point of concern. I get where people are coming from, where they're like, hey, do we even have enough? That relates to that question earlier about, you know, can the grid even handle this? What about the amount of material that's even necessary to make them? I've heard some recent reports that, yeah, there is enough lithium to support this, an economy of scale with battery electric vehicles. It is confirmed that there is enough lithium. It's how we mine it. It's how we extract that with as carefully as possible. With, you know, I understand that right now, you know, certain practices are unfortunately being outsourced to other countries,
You know, an old engineer that I used to work with said something that really stuck with me for many, many years. He said, There is no such thing as cost of raw materials because the planet is imbued with an enormous amount of resources and raw materials, except for maybe gold, which is hard to find.
Right.
Everything is cost and labor. Every cost is labor to get it mined, to get it out of the ground, to pay people to do that, to transport it, to ship it, the truck drivers and all that.
Yeah. Time is money.
With a mineral like lithium, for example, bringing it in from South America increases the cost enormously, tremendously. You've got shipping, you've got overland trucking, you've got all that. So if you can create it in the United States, or better yet, near a production plant, like this new symbiotic relationship with Redwood Materials and Tesla, where they're able to recycle and feed the production lines. That's the ultimate efficiency.
No, exactly, because that's the key, right? Is like, how do we perfectly balance the mix of needing to mine more, but then also using what we have? I mean, that's the exciting thing about BEVs, is that not only are they 90% efficient as a car because of those motors, but then that afterlife can take care of itself, because sure, you can either replace the battery, keep your car, have a good time, or if your battery's busted, take all those parts back and you can recycle all of those. You don't have that option with ICE cars. You just don't.
Yeah. Except for some of the metals, maybe, but yeah.
Sure, yes, some. I mean, those cat converters get stolen because people can take the raw material out of that, I guess. But how often do you hear about engines being melted down to make more engines?
Right.
Maybe that's happening and we don't talk about it enough. In which case, I'd like to see more people address that, because right now in the EV space, we're all confident in the battery ecosystem, where we can recover all that material, make more batteries, so that we don't have to mine as much. So
we have some feedback from Nalvers 53 or Nalver 53. I keep trying to put an S in there. He says, "I have a weird name, I know. When I was making my YouTube channel, I happened to have my wife's Revlon hairdryer in front of me in the Target bag. So get this. So I just reversed the name and added 53.
Yeah, Herbie the Love Bug. That's
I'm full of
he's
stories.
63. Yeah, never.
Yeah, I'm full of stories.
That's awesome.
I remember one day, I was just barely a teenager, and I had got, it was my first job basically, and I was out at it was a construction site. And I started to talk to the owner of this construction company. I was always fascinated by people that had started a business. And I said, "How did you come up with the name Wembley Construction?" Because his name was something completely different. He was an Italian guy. I don't remember his name, right? And he says, I was sitting in my lawyer's office one day, and we were trying to come up with a name. And I'm kind of absentmindedly flipping my tie, and I look at the back of my tie, and it says Wembley. And I said, "That's the name." Anyway, that stuck with me all these years.
Because it was there. When your idea is that good, you just need to get it trademarked. You're like, quick, what's around me? There was a comment earlier. It might have been. I think it was before. Well, we can talk to Anwar. Oh, it was from Ducati John from Camarillo, California, near LA.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, California, near Los Angeles. Okay.
There was also a comment. What do we think about an EV DeLorean? Was it the DeLorean?
Yeah. He mentioned DeLorean. Yeah.
I think it's cool.
Oh, cool is the right word. I can't add to that. I mean, it is just coolness personified.
I will say, I do wish it looked like Hyundai's. I keep forgetting the name of that car, but it's their hydrogen hybrid thing.
I think he's flipping through it. He's going to bring
there
something
we
out.
go. Look at that.
But I think it would be cool, provided they keep some of the original styling cues.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
because Hyundai did that better in their hydrogen.
So many of these cars try to improve on a classic, and it turns out it's not going to work. I mean, take a '68 Dodge Charger, for example. How are you going to improve on that? And they tried. Remember, they came out with a Charger. It was a bloated, fat-looking thing, four-door. It was, and I was embarrassed for Dodge at that point. Keep the retro styling.
It's funny because we're looking at it right now. So that thing just looks like a Lucid Air.
Yeah.
With the rear end of a I don't even know what you'd call that.
It kind of resembles the Roadster you guys have
there
on your table, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
Right here. But for every car that looks like that and we don't like and appreciate, somebody else loves that car. So
I'm not going to sit here and say that's ugly, because that is pretty. That is a pretty car. You know what, though? To what you were just saying about the 68 Charger or something like that, right?
Yeah.
These are iconic cars. I'm a big fan of sleeper builds. And what I love about the EV movement as it is right now is like 90% of sleeper builds are either LS swaps or EV conversions. And I think it's so cool. There's a guy in Denver who made an EV swapped, I don't think it's the Charger. It might have been I want to say a Barracuda. I could be wrong. There's a couple of videos about it. But it's a full EV swap for a supercar. Because you've got all that room in those old muscle cars in the front to put all that stuff. So you can balance it out. But anyway, it is hilarious how much more life you can give those things. And you already have that just clean, classic look.
Yeah.
But with all the performance that you could want out of an EV.
Awesome stuff. All right, so a former quality technician at Tesla, Ed Post, throw his name out there. He posted this on Quora. The question was, will Tesla ever exceed production expectations? Of course, a lot of people are chuckling because overcommitting and underdelivering generally comes to mind.
Yeah.
So he says, Elon delights in setting absolutely insane goals to motivate his people. Now, bear in mind, this is not an opinion from some outsider looking in. This is somebody that worked there.
Right.
Probably rubbed elbows with Elon, all right? What comes out of the process usually does not meet the goal he sets. He says Tesla production has grown by close to a factor of 2 every year since 2012. This is insane. No company can double every year. Amen.
Amen.
Just hiring and training people at that pace is difficult, and then putting production lines in place, debugging them, is equally difficult. He says, imagine your boss saying, okay, this year we're going to build more cars than we built in all of the previous years combined, and somehow you pull it off. And then he says the next year and the next, he wants that again and again and again.
Just unreal. And
So-
we're talking about cars, you know, with like cell phones. I know Apple got some of that criticism a long time ago where it's like, how could you possibly make this many iPhones?
Right.
Well, these are cars. These are not small items.
This is a much more complicated production process.
That's unreal. From Danny Light on YouTube, actually, and somewhat related. What type of diagnostic equipment do I need to buy to fix Teslas? I'm a mechanic that's looking to get into Tesla repair. Any suggestions?
Well, it depends on what type of Tesla. If you're trying to get into roadsters, which I don't believe you are because there's so few of them left and you're not going to be able to create a business around that. I'm assuming that you're talking about the later platform cars. There is a subscription available from Tesla for Toolbox, and Toolbox is their user-friendly software package that gives you a lot of diagnostic data about what's going on in the car. The documentation that comes with it is virtually non-existent, so it's going to be a do-it-yourself and learn on your own type effort. But that's probably one of the first things that anyone breaking into or wanting to break into Tesla repair would need. The other suggestion I have for you is if you really want to start a business working on Teslas, see if you can find yourself a Tesla-trained technician, and that will get you started.
That's really cool. That is cool that some of them are willing to do that. Because especially with Tesla's exclusivity on that material, it's nice that at least some people are willing to work with that. Well, and you guys have done a phenomenal job. I've noticed that you guys exposed that Tesla's operating system is Linux-based.
Yeah.
It's open source. And you can answer this, like, is that something that's been advantageous for you guys trying to fix them because that software is open source? And for those of you who don't know, open source just means you're able to go into the code that builds that operating system and look at it, tweak it, do what you want with it, and nobody will be too mad. So is that something advantageous for someone like our friend trying to get into the
Well, it does
repair
simplify
business?
things. You know, you don't have to buy software licenses from Microsoft or Adobe and have that additional expense. But in the EV world, the fact that Linux is the dominant language is definitely a plus. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, especially as cars get more computerized, Linux is definitely becoming. I mean, it's always been there, but to me, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine who's an engineer actually last night about this, and both of us agree it is really cool, the idea that if cars do become computerized, let's get them to look more like the desktop PC that people can build themselves and just throw a bunch of parts together, download their operating system, buy the license, and it works.
Well, that's an interesting thought.
I
yeah.
think
Build
that's
your own, yeah.
especially because people are so concerned with the kind of the iPhone car where you can't do anything to it, you can't fix it yourself, you can't really treat it yourself, you have to take it into specialists, and there's some advantageous aspects to that. We see that with Tesla, who has that kind of philosophy right now, mostly because these battery packs are big. And it takes professionals like yourself and like other Tesla technicians to actually work on that. But, I mean, in the future, hey, why not open that up a little bit? Why not get more people working on these things? And hey, building them yourself and making it simple enough the same way that we already make computers simple enough.
Sure, there's a big aftermarket effort that is just poised and ready to launch into this market. Like we spoke a number of times about being able to tune your EV.
Yes.
It's about software, and it certainly is doable.
So that's an encouragement for any of you guys who know coding. I don't know that much. I have very limited experience in coding. If you had asked me, 2 years ago, I can make you a very, very bare bones website with some Python. Nowadays, I can just read it. I can't speak the language.
Really quick, Pete. So in response to Danny Light, you had said that find a technician to study under, basically. Mm-hmm. He asked a little bit later, do we give tours of our shop? Can he take a tour?
Oh, absolutely. We give tours daily, literally, guys. Some days more than twice or 3 times a day. Every customer that comes by, I encourage them, hey, do you want to see what's going on out in the shop area? As we really grow much, much larger, insurance requirements are going to dictate that we can't really allow people to wander through the production areas. Mm-hmm. But for now, at least, people come by. They come from out of the country. They come from within the United States or just locally here. And we take the time to take them through and show them how we repair these cars and what's involved.
That's really cool. That's so cool of you.
They're fascinated by it. Yeah, I think we have a tip here as to how to answer the "Why do you wear sunglasses?" question.
Oh, here we go.
From TikTok, Dan L196. He says, just tell them the future is so bright you got to wear shades. All right,
exactly.
That's one of our new comebacks.
We got to get that on a shirt. From Milan on YouTube, is there a solution for Tesla S LED headlights whose DRL doesn't work?
What do you mean by DRL? I'm not sure what he's referring, what that acronym is.
Maybe, is there a prevailing problem with Tesla S headlights? Do you know anything about that?
For us, we see failures, we see burnt out bulbs, we see water ingress. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he may chime in and, oh, wait a minute, we're going to bring up something.
The LED DRL.
Yeah, it looks like the DRL is the LED strip that goes around the main headlight.
The angel eye. Okay. I didn't know that either. Thank you for pointing that out. So the DRLs don't work. The quick answer I have to that is we have a vendor. And by the way, our company is not only a collection of highly talented craftsmen internally, but there's certain things that we sub out. Things like PPF, you can't quite stay on top of that. You can't have a clean enough environment. And they're specialists. It's kind of like when you go to the doctor, you have a general practitioner, and then you've got somebody that does your brain surgery for you, right?
Well, and cars are like that now. I mean, if you go to a different guy, heck, I got a different guy for my muffler than I do for kind of my general stuff. I've got my general practitioner mechanic. I've got some specialist mechanic. And then, you've got your specialty guys that do PPF and all that stuff.
So where I'm going with this, Milan, and by the way, the last name is Olimpejevic.
Excuse me.
We have a vendor that does our headlights for us, and it does an awesome job. He actually opens them up. He's able to close them back up and make major improvements so they no longer get water ingress. We update the bulbs inside. We polish the inside. We put UV coating on the outside so you don't get the cracking and the fading and the fogging and all that. But so send us your headlights. We repair them, and you'll be pleased that they come back looking better than new.
That's awesome. we had somebody chime in, Van Goat, North Carolina. He said DRL is daytime running lights.
Oh, daytime running.
Daytime running lights. Thank you.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, love our audience. You're part of this presentation, guys. All right. Well, I've got another question here that was posted. Why does Tesla have production hell while other car companies don't? And this is from Jamu Omowale, who was a designer at Tesla from 2016 to 2019. He says, first of all, I work on the Tesla production line. The main problem that Tesla is having is outside manufacturing of batteries. With the opening of the gigafactories, that bottleneck will improve and it will speed up production. The other part of that is, what slows things down at Tesla, he feels, is the company culture is that we have to put out a flawless product. It is literally impossible to never make mistakes, but it slows down the process because we have to make sure that everything is flawless by the time it leaves.
Also, I can just hear anyone from Rivian just pulling their hair out. Like, do you have any idea what they've gone through? There is no car company that has never suffered from production hell, but there's just no way you don't.
And you compound that by the fact that these new upstarts have new staff.
Right.
They don't have mature production processes. They don't have mature quality control processes. As I've said all along, if you want an absolutely flawless car, you need to go to a company that has been around for decades, that has been able to nail all that down. And that's not going to be Rivian or IO, Neo, or even Tesla in some cases.
No, it'll
Remember
be
the paint and
Ford,
body
it'll
and the
be-
fitment
Yeah,
issues that they were
right.
complaining about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, panel gaps being
Yeah,
a big problem.
yeah.
But it's funny because it's like even Legacy Auto has always dealt with production hell to a big capacity. Right now, actually, we're going to see that a lot more because so many of them are having to overhaul their systems to accompany more EV production. And that's a big change. And the reality is, I feel like there's a strange false expectation that we have of any new company. It seems like we have this expectation that if they're bold enough to get started, that they have to have everything done perfectly to do it. Like as if everything could be so perfectly calculated to get started. And that is just such a false assumption. Rivian's actually been around for 10 years. It's only recently that they've been able to make production cars available for the consumer market. But it's still taken them 10 years just to have their name out. I mean, and this is a brand new company.
You have other issues, vendor relationships.
Sure.
Some of these mature companies have had vendor relationships for decades.
Right.
And they've weeded out the companies that weren't able to perform. These new companies are at the mercy of going out and recreating that supply chain.
Right.
And it's not
Pete,
easy.
one of the things you said too, I think related to the Roadster, right, was that the small production runs can be an issue too for the things that they're making.
I was just talking to one of the founders of Tesla actually Sunday night, and we were talking about that very thing. There's a problem with the Roadster key fob, and the key fob is actually a two-part process, or a two-part assembly. You have a transponder receiver, and then you have the fob itself. The vendor that they ended up selecting was not one of the mainstream vendors. And the reason is a company that is only going to build 2,400 vehicles is not going to attract the big companies who have huge minimum order requirements.
Right. It's going to be these smaller companies that just want to get in the game. They just want to have their name. And I feel like it's, a company should work with a company proportionate to itself for the most part. I mean, it works better for everybody to have that kind of, because it's like people in a lot of ways, where you work well with people that are, sort of in the same spot as you are. And that's the beauty of getting to, obviously meet new people, because you get to, you have this new breadth of experience. You have all this, you're able to build your own reputation, things like that. Car companies are no different.
And you end up weeding out vendors.
Exactly.
Initially, they give you stellar performance, and then they get lackadaisical, and you may have to change vendors again.
Right.
We've gone through that with some of the vendors we were using. PPF vendors, for example. So eventually, you get a consistent result. And the other thing I wanted to say about that is there's certain things that evolve too rapidly. Things like audio systems in a car. So yeah, we could do audio systems and install those in-house and do the research. But I guarantee you that a company that specializes in that, especially exotic car, audio systems, there's a new technology available every few months.
Yeah,
and,
right.
What that customer really wants is the latest and greatest. They
Yep.
don't want your time-tested,
I'm buying-
proven stuff from the '60s, tube radios, and I'm a little bit drastic here. Or I'm sorry, tape decks, right? 8-track, in a Tesla Roadster.
You know what? I wouldn't be mad if it had one.
That'd be pretty cool these days. It'd be a true retro.
Absolute retro, pure retro mod. That'd be awesome.
So here's a question in Los Angeles, or from someone who lives in Los Angeles. Is Tesla's Cybertruck a serious product?
Yes,
Yes.
it has to be at this point.
Yeah, but obviously the Cybertruck is an early version. As this truck moves into production, they're going to have to add things to it, such as rear view mirrors. Did you notice there aren't any on the car, unless we go electronics and you've got screens inside and all that?
A lot of EVs now do have just cameras there instead of regular mirrors, but they at least look like rear view mirrors. I've seen that on the it's on the Ioniq 6 actually.
Are there?
Yeah, they've got the little cameras.
And then there are mandated safety things like crash bumpers. If you look at the Cybertruck, it really doesn't have anything that would protect it from a collision, at least like a crash bumper.
That was another thing that made them have to go back to the drawing board, because they had I can't remember if it was some regulation or whatever it was. They looked at the angular design and they're like, yeah, that's just not gonna work out in an accident. And it's like, maybe not. But now what are you going to do?
The other thing that they're talking about is the amount of pre-orders. I guess they've exceeded 200,000 pre-orders for this Cybertruck. That's how many people want this thing.
Hey, Pete.
Yeah?
Just so you know, we are at about 52 minutes.
52 minutes. Okay, so we're going to be wrapping up here shortly, so get your last questions in. The final thing about this comment was they did the same thing with the Model S. They took pre-orders, and everyone wondered if this car would actually be produced. And as you notice, Tesla does eventually produce these vehicles, so we can put that concern aside. Another interesting statistic, the Cybertruck is a practical size, it says. It's just about exactly the same as a Ford F-150 crew cab.
That's pretty big.
All critical dimensions are within inches of the F-150. And, but not unlike the F-150, the Cybertruck is made out of thick stainless steel. And with a 1 million mile design life. The cool thing about the stainless steel body is it will never rust. And if you don't paint it, it's not going to need any paint. So you could have a lifetime truck here. It will look new, as they say here, 50 years after being parked outdoors.
I'm wondering if that has anything to do with the stainless steel on the new Petersen Museum.
Oh, most likely, yeah.
I wonder if there's something to this, where it's proof that there's enough of the material to go around that we can make an elaborate design building out of the same stuff, and you can trust it to hold up an exquisite building. Why not trust it for your truck?
You know, the opposite approach is some designers feel that a patina is advantageous, and if they made it out of steel, it would eventually rust and get a nice patina. If they made it out of copper, you know, you would get that patina that copper is famous for. The green,
you like intentionally letting it oxidize a bit.
All right, we've got some final questions here that we can entertain.
Let's see. Darren says, "Hey guys, what's up, Darren on YouTube?" There's a comment on, there's a political question in there. I think the extent to which we'll talk about politics on this show is going to only pertain
EV
to
related,
the EV related. Now there are, certain things that probably have something to do with the economy as far as EVs go, and I think that's most of the politics behind it is, how did that get managed? But there's.
Well, I think what Darren's pointing out is, and this is EV related, is that if the Republicans win, are they going to make life difficult for EV manufacturers? It seems to me that the Republican agenda is to begin to curb spending. And, there may be a direct correlation, that's about as political as I'm going to get, about deficit spending and inflation. And if there is, then maybe the Republicans have something, that makes sense here. But no, I do not think that any administration is going to turn their back on the evolution of clean energy sources and alternative transportation. We're way too late in that game. We have way too much compelling, overwhelming evidence that this is going to solve some of the problems that we have with this planet.
Yes.
And it would be highly irresponsible for any administration
Yeah.
to turn their back on something that had been started along those lines.
At the very least, we can have definite confidence that the demand is natural enough and is ample enough that we're going to see continued increase in this direction.
Yeah.
And I think we can have some confidence in that, no matter what the future holds.
We also have, I mean, how many EV companies that are American, right? We've got Rivian, Tesla, Canoe.
Yeah.
A
A lot of people like that canoe truck.
Yeah, we have a lot of American manufacturing happening, which is, if we were to start making it difficult for them, it's going to make it difficult for everybody. So I don't think that, I agree with you guys, I don't think that's going to be a thing.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it would be, I don't think it's any, exactly like you said, no administration should find it in their best interest to inhibit the progress of any kind of. Unfortunately, we have started to see that a little bit with the forced, the forcing of these manufacturers to stop producing gas cars by 2030, which means they're starting right now to do that. But at the same
EU
time,
actually just mandated that by 2035, a number of the EU countries now have mandated the cessation or the ending of any kind of ICE sales or manufacturing.
any kind? Because I know in California it's just new ones. So we're still going to have ICE vehicles on the road for 20, 30 years.
Oh, on the
at
road,
least.
yes. But I mean the sales and the production,
production
of,
of
vehicles,
them.
Which is the same that California is edging for.
All right, guys, we're coming up on 1 hour. If you want
We're
to rapid
wrapping.
fire
Woo!
through
All
these
right.
questions.
All right, real quick, yes, let's see. From Van Gogh, speaking of doubling, do you guys have plans on expanding? We've kind of talked about that.
I would suggest that you join us in the next podcast because we have a long answer to are we expanding and why aren't we doing at this moment. But what we can do, guys, is we can save some of these questions for the next podcast, correct?
Yeah, save some of these good ones for sure.
I would like to thank TikTok and all the other streaming platforms that we're on. We're going to capture some of your questions on the next, which is, by the way, Thursday at 8:30.
Yes, sir.
And we also have a video that we posted that we'd like to talk about and tell you about. But in the meantime, if you're curious about who we are, what we do, if you have any suggestions, email evie@gruber.com. Check out our website, grubermotors.com, and YouTube channel, of course, which is where we've got a couple hundred videos or so, which answers a lot of the questions that I see typically pop up here.
And hello, there was one comment from Austria. Hello to Austria. Great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a great talk.
Yeah. So again, we will see you Thursday at 8:30. I'm Pete Gruber.
And I'm Zane Courtney.
Thank you for joining us.